Yeah.
Yeah, we back from the tide to the gates. Feel that?
Midnight tide, grave lines coast. Intake screens flex, we doing the most. EDF screen steady green light. Bloom roll in, shut it down on sight. Moon bell creep where the currents sweep. Pumps choke out, gauges freeze deep. 4 cores drop, same damn time. Whole grid shift on a thin red line. Call it non-event while the intakes grind. Pitch and bass low with the same old line. A swarm like this don't read your chart. Don't care about the build or the engineer start. Suicidal jellies. Oh yeah. Drifting through the mesh. Into cooling lanes where the flows compress. Oh, no doctrine here. No corporate brief. Just a living wall bringing system grief. Facts, facts, facts. Suicidal jelly. Hear the updates spin, no safety impact while the grid wears thin. Tell them. Tornus logs, same damn tag. 11/21, no brag. Scotland, Sweden, Japan all jammed. Summer intakes locked, every filter crammed. EDF says massive, unforecastable. See, don't bluff. Non-negotiable, warm surge hit, polyps spawn by dawn. Screens go weak and the swarm moves on. They move. Still brief the press with their polished stance. Graphs and chants in the intake dance. Grid run lean, diesel kicking on. While the swarm close in from dusk to dawn. Suicidal jellies. Oh yeah. Drifting through the mesh. Into cooling lanes where the flows compress. Wall, bringing system grief. Suicidal jelly. Yeah. Hear the updates spin, no safety impact while the grid wears thin. Intake wheels lock, translucent crush. Crew move quiet in the maintenance rush. Model the storm, budget the quake. Bloom don't care what your forecasts make, never.
Keep your title high on the trade press sheet while the tide write bars and the beat so deep.
Suicidal jelly. No orders to claim, just shut you down in the ocean's game.
Suicide Jellyfish. It's a song, Google. It's at James Lucett's website right now on YouTube. I got a link in the description. Hello, everybody. Whew, another scorcher. My goodness. We're the last to see summer on the North American continent, I think. But my goodness, she's warmed up. I'm Dana. I hope you're doing well. 709-589-4406. Always takes me a minute to get up to speed. Get on over and give James a thumbs up on that video. He's only got 4 views in 2 hours. We can do better than that, can't we? Links are in the description to that song. We got a good show for everybody tonight. It's blistering hot. We got a forest fire on the other side of the mountain to me. It looks they brought in Water Bomber 3 helicopters to try to stomp it out. it keeps flaring up. But I think they got it under control by the looks of things. You can call in at these live shows at 709-589-4406. There is a new number, telephone number coming soon. And let's get after it. So yeah, the banana peddlers, the rocks, the potato chips, the flying on airplane. It's like that's been equated with radioactive fallout and nuclears. They simply got nothing to do with each other. And by the way, that song that we just played from James's side, that was in response to the French having to shut down 4 of their reactors yesterday because of a jellyfish had plugged up the intakes. And it's hard to appreciate, but each reactor, the best way to describe it, in a 24-hour period, amount of water is 6.45 million one-ton pickup trucks of water each day. 4,500 tons a minute, 1 million gallons a minute. But when you think of it in 6,450,000 one-ton pickup trucks, then you're kind of getting into the... it's equal to over a row of pickup trucks, bumper to bumper, wrapped around the entire planet of water each day. Each glass of water, by the way, typically would have 1 billion creatures. And 75 to 100 million of them would be the phytoplankton, the basis of the food chain, the oxygen chain, the carbon sequestration chain. And the rest of that glass of water, 1 billion creatures. So it's just a destructive industry. And you're talking about 416 of these disease factories, reactors, out there annihilating the ecosystem every day. The fuel pools are splitting atoms directly into your environment. It's the biggest threat. It's a bigger threat than by far, than, say, a meteorite coming and hitting Earth. This is a slow kill, but eventually it wipes out all the species. There is no small modular reactor, so please don't be lulled into investing into the small modular reactor industry. There is no small modular reactor industry. There is no supply chains. There are no factories. It's a pipe dream meant to displace geothermal and renewable energy. So we got we'll get into the news. NuScale Power achieved first U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission certification for small modular reactors in 2023. They haven't acquired any land. They don't have a full application into the regulatory agency, which is 2 million pieces of paper. They're not trying to build a reactor. They're not trying anything. They got the minimum requirements, and their first quarter or second quarter this year, is $8 million revenue. Does that sound like an up and running company? No. $8 million is a lot for a small company, but for the nuclear industry, it's irrelevant. It's not even enough money to pay for kickbacks to the nuclear regulatory, let alone the rest of them. It's a non-industry, and they're liquidating. The investors that are buying into these stocks have no concept of what's really going on. So they're going to lose 30% of their investment right away within 2 weeks. The stocks are being propped up by the 14 biggest financial institutions on the planet that are pump and dump stocks. They'll buy them, hold on to them for 3 or 4 weeks, and millions of them. And then when the investors see the stocks rise and they don't understand the picture I just explained to you, they'll invest into it with money they worked in factories and labor all their lives, and the industry will just steal that money when they dump those stocks. It's despicable. It's a Ponzi scheme, and it's allowed to happen because it's the bizarre nuclear industry. In the shadow of the Fukushima Daiichi disaster, we're in the shadow of that for 1 million years. Fukushima is not mitigated. You lost 36 reactor cores and 8 fuel pools at the top of 4 reactor buildings. And this was a connotation I've been seeing recently, and just recently. So it's a new narrative they're starting to mobilize to try to manipulate and deceive the population. The global nuclear energy sector has undergone a seismic shift. No, it hasn't. There's no nuclear renaissance. It's the same gigawatts today as there was in the early 90s. Safety, scalability, and regulatory rigor now dominate the conversation. It dominates the Ponzi scheme. There is no conversation. Nobody cares about nuclear, only the nuclear industry. And no matter how many straw man arguments they put out there, we're not seeing any fruition. We're not seeing any indication that this industry is going to survive. They're extending the current reactors they got, which is the most dangerous thing that they could do, and will ultimately backfire on them and contaminate the entire planet in the process. And we're already in deep trouble because of 80 years of emissions from the fuel pools worldwide. Like when the reactors are boiling water for 1 million homes and businesses, they're in a so-called containment, but it's not 100% containment. Once you take it out of there after 14 months, a huge chunk of it, and put it in the so-called specialized fuel pools. These are not pools, these are bore-rated, these are demineralized water. This is special type water with boron added to it. It has nothing to do with a pool or a lake or a pond or anything else. It's called that to lull you into complacency. Same as calling the isotopes daughters, right? Which is a reference that you might covet. And so they seized upon that name. These are not daughters. These are poisons. They are 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. Whether NuScale can capitalize on its lead in a race to redefine the nuclear energy. Look, there's 100 small modular reactor companies, or more, and none of them have land. None of them have a complete application into the regulatory agency. Every one of them have a different design, and all their designs though are based on already current reactor designs that are 80 years old. There's no innovation. It's the same thing for fusion. There's 100 companies. They're working on a design from 1904. There's no innovation. It's a scheme, again, meant to lull investors, unsuspecting investors, into a trap where there's no escape. And there's no investment. And they show you stupid stuff like this. This is their depiction of their 77 megawatt that they haven't even built. It's small. Why not build it? It's a small reactor. Why not build it? Why not build one? Why don't they build one? I mean, it's absurd. And they're going to be using plutonium mixed oxide fuel or high SA fuel on top of that. These are elements that we don't want in our environment, into the biosphere, into the ecosystem. Regulatory milestones, the post-Fukushima blueprint of post-Fukushima, as if Fukushima was over. A lot of smoke here today. I was just down looking at the closest fire to me, which is just over the hill here. And currently the winds are not blowing towards me. But if the winds, I don't think the winds are going to change towards me. If the winds changes towards me, I'm in real trouble. I'll be chased out of the house by the fire department and everybody else, and so I'll be able to take the basic stuff with me, the hard drives and everything else, but hook up the boat hopefully or something, some equipment. I don't think it's going to come my way, but I can tell you right now, the forest is so tinder dry. Like the forest is so tender dry, the mud, instead of mud, it's a powder. It's like a flour. I've never seen that before, by the way. It's like a powder. But that doesn't even do it. It's like flour. But it's like it's heavy compared to flour. I've never seen that before. Post-Fukushima, post-Fukushima, post-Fukushima. So there's a clear agenda that they're up to. And this all is a marker of desperation, by the way. Post-Fukushima. NuScale powered journey from a regulatory trailblazer to a commercial contender. And the reason I belittle that post-Fukushima, I use the word post-Fukushima as radioactive. Here's post-Fukushima. Radiation covers the entire planet for millions of years. This was a spike recognized by the French government of 1 million to 10 million atoms per cubic meter of air. Why would you want this technology on your planet any longer when it has already decimated your species? If all the gray whales are emaciated, last year and this year, no surviving babies on the 12,000-mile migratory run south last year to Baja, California. And now they're headed north and they're dropping dead everywhere. They're severely starving to death, emaciated. We've never seen nothing like this pre-Fukushima. We're seeing the same things with all the birds. We're not seeing insect-eating birds anymore. We're seeing seed eaters, but not insect eaters. The 46 million migratory birds that are supposed to come across my front door, fly over my house all day, raise their fledglings on the cliffs here, are completely disappeared. There's nothing. And nobody's willing to acknowledge that because the big elephant on every species' back is the radioactive fallout from Japan. By the way, this is cesium-137. This is like an invisible snowstorm. This is 23 days. An invisible snowstorm covering the entire planet in 23 days. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean this didn't happen. And you better take this serious. This is not a game. This is not an opinion or a conjecture. Everything I'm talking about is a factual fact, supported by an absurd amount of documentation that we have worked diligently to preserve. There's no post-Fukushima world is no insects and no birds and no mammals, no animals, and everybody with incredible diseases and illnesses and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries. That's what post-Fukushima world is like. And we're inching closer to that every couple of months. We're just a few years away from no gray whales. 2 years, maybe a year, there'll be maybe a couple of hundred left. A year after that, there'll be none. We're seeing those same attributes in humpback whales, in fin whales, in sperm whales, in covert beak whales, in you name it. This industry deserves pushback. The world needs those few people that are awake to figure out how to push back. Some people say to me, Dana, you got an amazing memory. And I don't, actually. Because telling the truth, you don't really need a good memory to tell the truth. You need a good memory to tell lies over and over and over. But telling the truth is natural. Right? Telling the truth is natural. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to try. You don't have to scratch your head. You don't need to look through papers. Telling the truth is easy. And that's like doing these shows is hard, but it's easier because all I'm doing is telling you the truth. Does that make sense? Does anything make sense anymore? I forgot a few things last night. I'll get to that coming up. This is back to, we covered this story last night, but it's a very persistent story, I would imagine, for quite a few days coming up. Japan is now claiming South Korea is going to lift the import bans. South Korea has not said that. It's the same as China in June. China didn't say they were going to lift any restrictions. It said they're not even considering it. But Japan was out claiming that China agreed to lift restrictions. China didn't agree to that. When you read all the different reports, you'll see that connotation showing up. This is an agricultural minister. What's he doing talking about nuclear? Why Why is he so young? Because he's willing to cut everybody's throat. He's part of these corporate personhood organizations, corporations, right? Which is the Japanese and the South Korean ministers. The food was banned from 8 prefectures. Chiba's right alongside Tokyo. It's 20 kilometers from Tokyo. Tokyo is a nuclear wasteland. Like, the radioactive fallout in Tokyo means that Tokyo should be abandoned, but telling 36 million people you have to leave, and where are you going to go? And what's that going to do to the nuclear industry and as a whole worldwide? It'll be the end of the nuclear industry immediately. That's 240 kilometers away from the nuclear meltdowns on top of that. It's just a matter of time now before the world starts to appreciate the enormity of what the nuclear industry has gotten away with for 80 years and starts going head hunting. South Korean foreign minister right here, this guy with the yellow behind him, meets with the farm minister. Farm minister. What's the farm minister got to do with the fishery? South Korea banned the food in 8 prefectures, not just fish. It's half the country. These are large prefectures. Fishery minister, degenerate, called on South Korea to lift import restrictions on Japanese seafood products that were imposed following 2011 Fukushima nuclear. And see, calling a nuclear disaster is, you're not giving it the prominence that it deserves. These are catastrophic events. These are, a nuclear meltdown is an event. The radioactive fallout is an event. We don't have any other pollution or, emission, good or bad, besides anthropogenic man-made, which is bad, that produces plumes that covers the planet. And this model is only 23, this study, rather, is only 23 days. This spike, and this is only cesium-137. It's pretty incredible. I've smoked before a long time ago, but it's a long time ago. I don't know how long ago now. Is it a decade or something? We got smoke from the forest fires, right? And my windows are open because if I close them, I'm going to heat up in here. I can't have the air conditioning running right now because it's too noisy when I'm doing the show. So South Korea. So I have a lot of legacy headlines on South Korea. So you know how I get sometimes with legacy headlines. So we got a few legacy headlines to get through. Because this story and these legacy headlines, like James Lucid's song about the jellyfish, is about the French reactors, which is dominating headlines too, having to shut down because of jellyfish. And so the headlines I'm going to show you tonight, coming up here in a minute, are about South Korea, radioactive fallout in South Korea. It wasn't just South Korea, it's the entire planet, by the way. But South Korea, the current administration is pro-nuclear. The original president of the administration right now is in jail for trying to invoke martial law against protesters. It backfired on him. He's a former prosecutor who denied Fukushima had happened. And so the prime minister of South Korea that replaced him, I thought was anti-nuclear, but turns out not so. Fukushima disaster contaminated the territory of Japan, the Sea of Japan and Korea, which is South Korea, up to 8 orders of magnitude above global fallout background of the prefecture. But the current administration, so the Sea of Japan is between Japan and South Korea. South Korea is up by Hiroshima. cesium-137 hotspot detected in Seoul, South Korea. 1,000% normal background radiation, 1,200 kilometers from Fukushima. So South Korea, the original administration acknowledged the radioactive fallout in many different ways. This is some of them I'm showing you tonight. Radioactive rain caused 130 schools in Korea to close, South Korea. And rain in California had 1,000 times, 100,000 times more radioactive fallout, 1,000,000 times more, and they didn't close the schools. Chile finds radiation in South Korean cars. Tests showing up to a level 5 on the radioactive indexes. A level 9 is needed for alert. No, a level 1 is needed for alert. There is no safe levels of radiation. Cesium pulses energy 600 feet every second, which is going to destroy your chromosomes, your DNA, and your cells of every species, not just humans. So Korea didn't escape it. And the material is 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. And the harm caused by nuclear disasters is greater than any work of man other than the atomic bombs. Well, nuclear is worse than atomic bombs. Atomic bombs were brutal, by the way. And we can trace back the decline in all species to the nuclear testing era. That was a nuclear war, same weapons, same radioactive fallout. And they used more nuclear weapons during the testing than they would in a nuclear war, right? Because the majority of the people alive, or even watching this, has no memory of the nuclear testing. Some of them do, but the majority don't. Radiation is like explosions going off in your cells and blowing holes in your DNA and your chromosomes. Your body needs iodine. Every cell needs iodine. Every cell. And your body uses iodine not just to metabolize, so it's good for weight loss, but also to make hormones. And because you have so much radioactive elements, anthropogenic man-made radioactive gamma elements that will replace iodine in your thyroid gland, it's important to start using thyroid or iodines. And so you just put a little drop in the crook of your arm, just rub it around here, and it should disappear in an hour or two. That means you needed the iodine, right? When it doesn't disappear after a few hours, it means you're okay for a couple of days. It's not going to hurt to keep doing it either, by the way. But a little drop every day of just over-the-counter iodine. Do some basic research and just go to a pharmacist and get that iodine and just use a drop every day until you stop absorbing it, and then do a drop every 2 days or every 3 days. Because you need it for every cell in your body, right? And it's very important because it feeds your thyroid gland on top of that, which regulates every function in your body. So it's extraordinarily important. And it helps displace the anthropogenic man-made gamma emitters that are being consumed or ingested and breathed in. 392 nanosieverts an hour today in South Korea. These are big numbers. Each government radioactive iodine detected in 6 seaweed samples by South Korea. Why would South Korea have anything to do with Fukushima again? Why would they remove any restrictions? Major United States paper, time to quit nuclear power altogether, threatens the very existence of human civilization as we know it. And that's an understatement, by the way. Plutonium detected underground near Fukushima reactors. Test results not revealed publicly for almost a year after the sampling date. Officials plan to pump up the groundwater from the same well it was found in and dump it into the Pacific Ocean. Well, all of us go straight into the Pacific Ocean. What they done was they drilled holes around the site. They called them wells. And they have pumps in each of them, and then they take samples. And then they're determining how much is running towards the Pacific Ocean because it's downhill right away to the Pacific Ocean, right? But allegedly, the original story of the tanks was the stuff in the well that they're bringing up for samples, when they're finished with it, was being dumped into the tanks. But then they moved the goalposts and claimed that everything they were pouring on the reactor was being captured and put into the tanks is simply absurd to suggest it, by the way. And from an engineering standpoint, it's ridiculous to suggest it. From common sense standpoint, it's ridiculous to suggest it. But from a public relation firm trying to protect the nuclear industry, it was a coup. And dump it into the Pacific. Plutonium, you can't have nuclear without plutonium. Plutonium-241, for instance, from Fukushima, it's 70,000 times more than atomic bomb fallout in Japan. Large areas of the ocean is contaminated by the plutonium from events such as Fukushima. Build up in the biosphere expected. Again, right there, it's so difficult to get an honest report. Like trying to get a journalist to tell you the truth is like trying to get a serial killer to give up his catch of souvenirs. They're both evil, so that's why I use those connotations. This is 23 days. This is just 23 days of CC-137. My goodness. There's no coming back from that. If you shut down every nuclear reactor on the planet that day, and you contained 1,000 fuel pools that are splitting atoms into your environment surrounded by farms, you are still eventually going to be extinct. This ultimately will exterminate every species on the planet. This is not a game. We're in the ultimate fight for survival, and there's just a very few of us that are aware or care at the moment. The world would care if they were informed. And the industry has done everything to sabotage me and destroy me. And they have no checks and balances to hold them back. And they have an unlimited budget. And they succeeded for the most part. And it wasn't for the will of you wonderful folks out there, I'd be gone. On top of that, despite my persistence, they've done every dirty thing you could do to me that I've ever heard of. It's worthy of a Hollywood blockbuster. Build up in biosphere expecting considerable hazard to humans. Molten fuel particle-like contains special nuclear material. Particle-like, so the fuel was atomized and aerosoled and particulates. And the particulates are still splitting atoms. It's truly the worst case scenario. It's the worst, it's a mortifying scenario. Nuclear expert xenon detection in South Korea may be from Fukushima reactors. Well, where else would it be from? And the quantity, like the xenon in Washington and British Columbia, Canada, for instance, was 450,000 times above detection levels. It was a continuous plume covering the entire planet. Public concerns about Japan's fish imports for South Korea looks to be justified. Contaminated seafood recently on sale in South Korea. Over 6 million pounds found since 3/11. This was 2013. So Japan has consistently relabeled the fish and sent it to countries that had a ban on the prefectures. They just relabel it as another prefecture or even another country. They're out to poison everything and everybody. The story is insane. Is the nuclear industry trying to kill as many people as possible by building nuclear plants in farmland? So let's explore that for a few minutes. I'm not expecting to get a full show in the night. I wasn't even going to do a show. But I have this auto mode that I'm into all the time, which is like a safety to keep producing material to try to counter the nuclear industry. At least somebody's out there trying to counter the nuclear industry, right? And And I got all my paperwork filed now for my pension. Officially today, right? All that's done. There's nothing else to do. Everything is submitted. Everything's accepted in there. I'll get an answer somewhere in the next month or two what it looks of it. And there's no way they can deny me, so we'll be back in business in another month or two, back up and running. Won't be as strong as before, but we'll be fine, right? And then James Lucid had donated another $250. I forgot to mention that last night. My apologies. I like people to know that I received it because the industry is so dubious, right? And Colette donated another $650. And so that accumulation of good news, right? All the paperwork's now submitted. I have 2 good donations in a row. It's taken a lot of stress off me. It's an enormous amount of stress. And so after that, I slept for 2 hours like a baby. Just drained, mentally drained with the stress I've been under. And so I'm really, that's the reason we're doing the show tonight, is just because that's a huge relief, right? And so that's going to make it easier for me now to function normal. As I've been to hell for the last month. This has been hellish. It's been unbelievable for the last month. The uncertainty, right? Because I lost my other pension from the disgusting industry. And let me get back on track here for a second before I forget why I'm here. But we're still in a heat wave here, and it's pretty exhausting, eh? The heat. It's pretty exhausting. And we should get a little bit of relief, theoretically, by Friday for a couple of days. And I don't know, allegedly the temperature, I don't know how the temperatures are going to go down because everything is, the earth, there's no water in our earth here. Fukushima has killed the bacteria and the fungus and the biota in the soil. The soil is not soaking up water no more. Okay, I found what I was looking for. And so the only way that we can get cool is by soaking up water in the forest, right? The only way we can avoid all these forest fires is if we were soaking up water, and then in the morning it has perspiration, the morning dew, so to speak. That would help mitigate fire, right? And we don't have that. So the question is, why? Let me get this set up again. Is the nuclear industry trying to kill as many people as possible by building nuclear plants in prime farmland? And I'm going to explain that to you. Coming up any second. Here we go. So why is it almost every nuclear power plant is surrounded by farms? Because you can see, typically as far as you can see, if you're looking at a satellite picture, it'll blow your mind. And nuclear energy is the only energy that has that particular attribute. And so the fuel pools at these nuclear power plants, see the skinny stacks? They're for the fuel pools and the incinerators, where they're burning radiation, but they're also releasing radiation through the fuel pools, through the evaporation of the fuel pools. Each fuel pool, and there's 2 at the top of typical boiling water reactor buildings, is losing about 120,000 liters of water a day. And this is the radioactive fallout, the depiction I got there for you. Is gonna a lot of it's gonna land in the food, on the food, and it gets absorbed in the food, but it's also on the food. And because it's organically bound, it's electrically charged, you can't just like wash it off and expect it to come off per se. Not that they're doing that, and not that that would be a solution. And so a lot of this food is shipped off to your supermarkets far away because you don't live in proximity. They can't get you that way. And so they ship that food out. And so there was a concerted effort for the nuclear industry from its inception to poison you through the food chain by situating nuclear power plants, and it's not just in proximity to cities or anything else, or the drinking waters, which is another routine they're doing, but in proximity, typically surrounded by farms as far as you can see. And so when you start looking at this, was a Sellafield, formerly known as NuScale. There's 8 million liters a day from a meltdown still going into the Atlantic Ocean. That's on the Atlantic Ocean, surrounded by farms. And these pictures don't do it justice, but what I'm trying to do is show you that there's a concerted effort to poison you, that this industry has no redeeming qualities. It is definitely 100% unequivocally setting up every nuclear power plant so it can poison the most people, and far and wide by shipping food too, see? Now they have endless amount of studies that grapevines or any other fruit or vegetables are going to suck up the radiation. They know that. They're well aware of that. So why would you build your reactors in prime farmland when you know, like strawberries, are going to uptake? It's not just cesium and strontium. It's going to uptake any radiation. So why would you build your nuclear power stations in the middle of prime farmland, active prime farmland, if that's not an agenda? Why would you do it? Well, the only thing that makes sense, because almost every nuclear power plant, they have millions of studies warning you. There's no way the industry doesn't know, because they're involved in these studies, rather. You're paying for them. Potatoes are sucking up radiation. So why would you, knowing that the food is going to be a weapon, is going to be no good unless you just don't tell the public, unless you're intending to poison the public, then it's the perfect, you can't smell it or taste it or hear it or feel it or touch it or perceive it. So it's the perfect weapon. And the higher you get, the more farmers' land you're going to see around a nuclear power plant. They've been doing this since the inception. So every nuclear power plant being built today is surrounded in prime farmland. Britain, for instance, got 2 on the run right now, right? Both of them are in prime farmland. How can we deny what's going on? Cesium, strontium in fruit plants. So do you really think they don't know what they're doing? Of course not. I know you know better. So they know that they know that every type of food is going to suck up radiation. So why are they growing food right alongside of nuclear disease factories? Because they're always hemorrhaging radiation from the fuel pools. So the fuel pools are full of reactor cores, and each reactor core was splitting atoms for millions of homes and businesses. When you take it out of the reactor, put it in the fuel pool, it's still splitting the same atoms, except now it's being evaporated out of the fuel pools and into the surrounding areas, but also into the biosphere. It's not just the local areas, but you can imagine how much is fallen locally. And when you look at all these studies, then what are you left with? Are you going to just say, well, no, it's a coincidence? You can't do that, see? Hello, everybody. Yeah, corium is what you need to check for. Corium is the biggest byproduct of the radioactive fuel rods. Let me just go down that road for a minute. I mean, and you notice they're always talking about gamma cesiums, right? But curium, you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium. Plutonium was named after the devil. And you know how to use smoke on a bee's nest to make the bees passive? Bees won't sting you anyway. But it stops them from getting excited. But most people don't even, experts don't use smoke on a bee's nest typically, right? Unless they're doing, like they're moving, unless they're moving the nest somewhere or something like that. Estimated half-life, so let me explain this one to you. I'll get to that one in a second, back here. So a study on 144 beagle dogs inhaling plutonium. They were allowed to live out their life. Death from radiation occurred 5.4 years after exposures. Tumors of the lungs, the skeleton, and the liver occurred beginning about 3 years after exposure. Bone tumors in 93 dogs out of the 144 dogs were the most common cause of death. Liver tumors were found in 20 dogs, were the cause of death in only 2 dogs, occurred later than the tumors in the bones and the lungs. So the bones, the lungs, and the liver from the same isotope, which is plutonium. Tumors in these 3 organs often occurred in the same animal and were competing causes of death. These findings in dogs suggest a similar dose-related biological effects could be expected in humans accidentally exposed to plutonium-238. But it was discovered that human kidneys are at least 50 times less efficient than the animal kidney at removing plutonium. So the humans are 50 times more likely to die than the dogs, and the dogs died in all the studies. So you're going to die quicker and more. Now, bone tumors is a brutal way to die, and the majority of deaths for the animals was bone tumor. But another study by the same author, which is the United States Navy Loveless Respiratory Research Institute in New Mexico, with the lead author of Dr. Raymond Gilmedes. The curium isotope, now forget about the alpha emitter for 1 second. Think about the fact that it's the biggest byproduct, not cesium-137, not iodine-131, but curium isotopes are the major byproduct in the irradiated nuclear fuel. Right? So curium isotope, and it's known that curium isotopes need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium that killed all the dogs. So the biggest byproduct is the curium isotope. And humans are 50 times less efficient than animals at removing plutonium, for instance. And so growing food right alongside of these disease factories, the only outcome of that is the people that eat it get sick and die. And death may take a long time. They'll be ill for a long time. Their loved ones will liquidate their assets to try to bring them some comfort and try to extend their lives. But ultimately, they'll die from multiple tumors. And their immune system is compromised. Nuclear has no redeeming qualities. It's the perfect weapon, though, to exterminate a planet. It's a silent killer, and you can't perceive it or see it or hear it or feel it or taste it. It's the perfect weapon. And there's no species on the planet with an autoimmune trigger that can defend against it. Well, Darlene says she's watching from 3 devices. Let me explain that to you for a second. So if Darlene's watching from 3 devices, that means I only got 15 people on my show, not 17. If somebody else is watching from multiple devices, I'm going to do a little experiment here for a second. Just give me a second. I'm going to show you something. It's going to take me a second to set this up. Okay. Here we go. So we got 17 people. So this is the current show. I'm not going to open up. I'm just going to go. I'm going to click, and you can see the top of the page. It opened up there. See that? So I'm just going to press on the center button. That's going to open up another link. You see it open up at the top of the page? Watch the top of the page. I'm going to open up another one. I'm going to open up another one. I'm going to open up another one. So these are all the shows. I'm going to open up another one and another one. I'm going to open up 5 more. I'm going to count them, and you're going to see I'm going to have like 26 people or something watching my show, but it's not going to be 26 people. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's 12. Let's do 2 more. 13, 14. So when all of those finish cycling, they're going to show up. Okay. So watch the numbers go up. They're going to go up. And it's going to start climbing in a minute. It might take 10, 20, 30 seconds or something. I'm getting less numbers. But what should happen is those numbers, that should climb by 10 or 12 people. It could take 15, 20 seconds, 25 seconds. Now I got less people. Gonna make a lawyer out of me tonight. Looks like I'm wrong. I've done this experiment before and it always worked. It's not going to work tonight, but it looks of it. It's not going to work tonight. Okay, I'm going to close that down. So normally that would give me 12 more people watching the show. And it didn't. I don't know. Let's keep going. Is the nuclear industry trying to kill as many people as possible? So I would imagine because of my poll tonight, I got incredible censorship. That's probably what's going on. Children with as little as 50 atoms a kilogram of cesium-137 have irreversible heart disease or damage. This is a new reactor site that they're building in the United Kingdom, surrounded by farms. Right, that's another new reactor they're going to build in the United Kingdom, surrounded by farms. That's just models, right? Surrounded by farms as far as you can see. And Japan's crazy. Japan, the food was banned by 55 countries for a decade. There's 20 countries still banning it. You see this farmer harvesting the new genetic modified rice. It's not supposed to suck up cesium, and then people buy into that. Well, it's not going to suck up the cesium, Dana. It's probably okay. First off, the nuclear meltdown is still happening, so the radioactive fallout is just going to land on it anyway. But there's not just cesium. There's 1,000 isotopes. And I mean, they picked up 30 million one-ton bags of topsoil. and they're growing food right alongside of it in the nuclear wasteland. This is not a country that you should do business with in any shape or form. This is evil. The whole industry is just, it can't exist unless it's evil. Seawater is being poisoned at a continuous rate from Fukushima plant. The source of life on which our lives depend is being corrupted. So there was descending voices.
Listening.
I wasn't talking to you, Siri.
I can't seem to recognize the song.
I hope not. Siri, go to sleep.
I take a little nap anytime you say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Okay.
Smart ass. Government needs to ban all fish imports from all region of Japan. Microbiology professor. No one can block fish migration along with the sea currents. Well, it doesn't need to migrate in the sea currents, right? Because the radioactive fallout covered the entire planet. Covered the entire planet. Another model to consider is the Neptunium-239 model. I think it should be this one, yeah. So this is based on 20 days and 21 days of radioactive fallout. It decays to plutonium in lots of 10% every 2.5 days. So after 25 days, it's all decayed to plutonium. Plutonium has a 24,000-year half-life, and there's 10 half-lives before it decays to another dangerous isotope. So Neptunium-239, and they'll say, oh, well, it's only got a 2.5-day half-life. And people will say, well, it's long gone, Dana. But it actually decays to another isotope, which is plutonium-239 in 2.5 days. And that don't go away for 24,000 years. And they named it after devil because it gives you multiple tumors, and it doesn't care if you're a dog or a human. Remember, dogs have a 50 times better chance of surviving than a human does. And it killed all the dogs. Japan Times, Prime Minister telling outright lies. Nuclear. This is Japan Times, which now is telling you there's no meltdowns, by the way. Nuclear material is kept gushing into the Pacific. Hemorrhaging, I call it, but gushing is fine in my books. Because the word leaking makes me want to chop the fingers off a nuclear scientist every second of the day. Every time I hear it, I want to chop the fingers off whoever wrote it. I'm not saying I do it, I'm just saying there should be a law that that's what happens. Has kept gushing into the Pacific far beyond man-made bay. The man-made bay is absurd because Shinzo Abe, who thankfully, thank goodness, is not with us anymore, had made the assertions that all the radiation was staying in the bay, which is absurdness. The radiation covered the whole planet in just 20 days. Newspaper, typical researcher says it's impossible to contain the radioactive wastewater leaking from the Japan plant. The government has lost all credibility. Every time I hear the word leaking, I'm disgusted. Right, to use the word leaking is next level evil. Just bear with me here. I can't, unfortunately, I cannot tell you a good story about nuclear. I don't have a single good story about nuclear to tell you. This is media from around the world. This is just a fraction of the media that done this. They're saying that they're in reactor 4, and this is what it looks like at Fukushima. But that's reactor 4 over there. And that where they're depicting, which is at the top of the buildings, is 190 feet up in the air. You got to be up close to the top of that building to look down on a fuel pool, which is at the top of the buildings, which is where the reactor cores are just below them. There's nothing left of the building. They were doing maintenance, which is just changing the fuel, and they might have 11,000 maintenance things they have to do each time, every 11, 12, 14 months. But the one thing when they're doing maintenance is you don't take all the fuel out of the reactor core. They might at best take out around 1/3. So 2/3 was still in the reactor core of reactor 4. But at the top of the building was these fuel pools. There's 2 of them. And that's where they were storing decades of the reactor cores because they don't have a repository. And that's the standard for these boiling water reactors. They're all identical. The United States has 70 identical reactors. The colors, where the plug outlets are to, where the doors are to, everything's identical. That's where they took those videos to. And we were talking about Hinkley Point. This is some reason, what is the electricity bill for this every day? This is just a fraction of the site, by the way. But what would the electricity bill be for this site each day? They have 2 dedicated gas, oil, or coal plants to build a site, to run the site, and then to decommission the site for 60 years. Dedicated to it, which is producing probably as much power, if not more, than the site's going to produce. The fuel cycle is all about getting plutonium for weapons, see? And power is just a simple byproduct of boiling water. You need to go through the fuel cycle so that the fuel now is capable of making material. It's a perpetual machine, by the way, at that point. Once the chain reaction starts, you have an actual perpetual machine. A nuclear fuel rod that has gone through a chain reaction is a perpetual disease factory. It's splitting atoms forever. That's the reason why nuclear is dangerous. Because you can't contain the emissions, which are lethal to everything with replicating cells. We're in so much trouble because people don't understand this facet of this, is why we see the heartaches and heartbreaks and our loved ones getting sick and passing on, and the decline of every species, the emaciation of all the visible species. And this is Hinkley Point C. It's surrounded by farms as far as you can see, by the way. And they're calling this clean energy for some reason. Nuclear is the most resource-intensive industry, period. There's no other energy out there that uses up so much resources. And so each reactor needs 6,450,000 one-ton pickup trucks of water each day to cool it, and to boil water to power 1 million homes and businesses. Each glass of water is 1 billion creatures, so do the math on that. So do the math on 6,450,000 tons. There's 1,000 liters in a ton. There's 4 glasses in a liter. Each liter is 1 billion creatures. And 75 to 100 million per glass is the phytoplankton, the basis of the food chain, the oxygen chain, the carbon sequestering chain. The rest of it is eggs and larvae and small fries and microscopic animals. So these are annihilating machines. They annihilate the ecosystem through volume. They sterilize it. Everything that goes through a plant, when it comes out the other end, is sterilized. All the species are dead. You tell me that's not a genocide machine? We have 418 of them on our planet exterminating the species. They've been doing it for 80 years. And so they're very, very good at it. And then the emissions from the fuel, every year you have more emissions from each site because you're taking fuel out and putting it in the pool every year. So each year it's producing more radioactive fallout from the fuel pools. And the amount of radioactive fallout, like the amount of isotopes produced to boil water to drink a glass of tea for me, just 1 glass of water, the amount of atoms we're talking about is like a Google number. The amount of atoms produced to boil water to power 1 million homes and businesses each day in a single reactor, not the site, but a single reactor, is more atoms than all the grains of sands and all the beaches on the planet and all the stars in the solar system. And they don't go away. They're forever isotopes. And there's nothing on the planet with an autoimmune trigger to defend against it. And we have 1,000 fuel pools doing that every day. But each year, you're producing more fuel that is splitting atoms directly into the environment with no containment, and that there's nothing on the planet with an autoimmune trigger to defend against it. What do you think the ultimate outcome of all of this is going to be? And they're counting on it that you don't understand what I'm telling you. They're counting on you never, ever hearing what I'm telling you. They're never, ever going to acknowledge what I'm telling you. But that's the science of how it works. Hello, everybody. Kenito, Warrior Height. Hello, everyone. I'm surprised we made it to an hour. Let's try to get a little bit more in. So how can you call these nuclear sites carbon-free? Every piece of material on the site is triply inspected by 3 independent companies. It can only be the best of the best quality. All the cement, all the wire, all the rebar, everything is triply inspected. It has to meet the highest standards imaginable. It's the most resource-intensive industry on the planet. Just this one site, Hinkley Point C, is the biggest construction site on the planet in history. And it's the amount of cement they're using is enough to build a sidewalk to Rome and back from the United Kingdom. And the cement they're using is nothing but the best of the best of the best. And when they turn those pumps on, you're talking about billions of fish, small fish, billions, trillions of small fish, billions of adults being exterminated each year in the exchangers. Now multiply that by 416 nuclear sites. U.S. bans agricultural fishery products from 14 prefectures in Japan. 2013. Why would you wait till 2013? Why would you wait for 2 years after the nuclear meltdowns to do it? Concern over contamination is spreading to most countries around the Pacific. Why would you wait until 2013? Because that administration sold you out, right? They're dumping huge amounts of Fukushima contamination into the Pacific. They're dumping it all into the Pacific. If you put the contamination into the 1,000 tanks, the tanks will melt down. You can't go putting gammas, alphas, neutrons, and betas, the fuel particulates in the tanks, because they're all going to gather up on the bottom. You're going to have a criticality and burn a hole through it. This incredible dangerous material now is going to permeate in that area too, and you're going to lose access to the site. The tanks are there to lull you into complacency. You can't filter it because you can never step over the pipes or the hoses. You can't get in the building to change the filters after 20 minutes ever again. You're talking about multiple sieverts per liter. You have no way of shielding a human. You're talking about gamma shines, neutron bombardments, and beta rays and alpha that will melt your organs. It doesn't matter how brave or stoic you are. We could have large numbers of cancer from eating fish. Not just cancer, but heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline, Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, diabetes, Down syndrome, schizophrenia. There's endless diseases. Your immune system is compromised. You're more susceptible to pathogens and viruses that were normally harmless and innocuous and benign. Like, I work really hard to do my videos, right? I work really hard. And I've spent years, I let the trolls for years just come in and say whatever they felt like. And, you know, what's the point of me doing all the work if the trolls are going to come in on my side and say stuff that is going to denigrate the truth? Because they feel they have a right, or that, it's not that they feel it, they just project that, right? I work hard for my site. I created my site. I do all the work all day. I work like a dog all day. And then when I tell my story at night, and so I blocked a lot of the trolls over the years. I just got sick of it. And anybody that's causing problems, I'll get rid of them too, because I'm here to help the planet. This is not about Dana. This is about 8 million species. This is about the future of humanity. And this is about educating the world so we can have a real conversation, so we can have a constructive way forward. But because I've been under siege my entire time, like, my comment section is a privilege. Nobody has a right to be there. It's a privilege. I got it there so people can ask questions and get answers. It's not there so the trolls can come in and be shitheads and arseholes, right? And, you know, by rights, it shouldn't even have a comment section, because people are spending so much time in the comment section instead of learning about what's really going on. And that every show is a blessing. You know, who knows when the industry will finally kill me or disable me or take my site down like they've already done. And if people are causing problems or people are not sticking to the subject, they'll find themselves blocked. And I won't blink an eye. I won't blink two times. Because my comment section is meant to be there to help new people, and so other people can have a conversation about the topics. Officials blamed Japan's government over Fukushima, such immoral peoples, to let the radioactive substances flow out freely, and said nothing while contaminating the ocean is just absurd. What's more important than that statement? Really? What's more important than the truth, right? Fukushima disaster to go almost to infinity, I'm afraid. It will never be resolved. If the situation at the plant continues, the Prime Minister, well, you got multiple nuclear meltdowns. How can it not go on forever? The small modular reactors in Canada, by the way, are 240-foot buildings. This is what the Canadian small modular reactors are, 240-foot skyscrapers. We're going to put half of that underground, but they're still 240-foot skyscrapers. The comment section is there so everybody can add to the dialogue. And it's also there to correct me if I make a mistake, if I make a Freudian slip. Right? It's a safeguard. Because what we do is we are here to tell you the facts, the truth, the documentation. And it's very difficult to provide that documentation. It's very difficult to stay on track. It's very difficult to... You can't script these shows per se, because then you're only looking at a half-an-hour show. And so the shows are freestyle, but there is a preamble that I do. And so when I do it, when you see these, when you see stuff like this, I put that there because I realized I needed to talk about that for this particular show. It's true that 70% of Japan's territory is polluted by Fukushima radioactive material. Tokyo is contaminated with highly toxic radiation. That's 36 million people. Experts worry about catastrophic impact on health. It's probably one of the most terrifying headlines you can conceive. And we have thousands of them. thousands. I don't do these shows because it's fun, it's easy, I'm bored, I like it, or anything else. I'm doing it because there's nobody else on the planet that's having a conversation. The world needs somebody to have that conversation, whether they acknowledge it or not. And I'm definitely not here because it's fun. I'm definitely not here because it's easy. I'm definitely not here because it makes me popular. I'm definitely not here. You know, there's so many other things I would want to do, but what's more important than what's happening? What's more important than this story? What is more important than this story? There is nothing more important than this story. If your loved ones are getting sick and dying from this, it's the most important story in your life too. And they are getting sick and dying from this. You got all the whales are emaciated. If that's not important, what is? You can't just blame it on a garbage can diagnosis. What broke the food chain? Why did all of this happen post-Fukushima? These are not attributes we've seen before Fukushima. And you might think I'm hard. You might think I'm uncompromising. You're right, I am. I'm hard and I am uncompromising. Not because I want to be, not because that's my personality either. It's because we are in end times. Fukushima is an extinction event. I'm here because that was my calling. And because I got the grit and I have the fortitude, unfortunately, and the courage, I guess, to take on this industry, which basically makes me stupid because the industry is going to win. But I don't know how to give up. I don't know how not to fight for you and your friends and your families and your loved ones, your hopes, your dreams. I don't give a fuck about mine. I sacrifice everything so everybody can have, hopefully, some kind of a future. That's the dream. That's the big dream. And that's been defeated by an industry that is enormously powerful, wields an enormous amount of influence, not just in universities and medias and key government positions, the social media. I'm up against a monolithic monster, and I'm doing it on bare bones. And now I'm doing it on less. But I'm very methodical. I built an incredible operation because I knew this day would probably come. So in the last number of years, I concentrated on building a machine shop so I can maintain all of my antique equipment that I got, my broken equipment. This year again, I can't even get my boat in the water to go out and do real research. That's humiliating. History will look back on this moment, these years, and hang their heads in shame that somebody couldn't get out there and do the research who had the enormous drive to do it. And I had to claw my way back after 10 years in a hospital bed and 5 years to learn to walk again, to get out and do the research was just unbelievable. It was the definition of misery. And my name has been destroyed. My reputation has been destroyed. I've been under siege the entire time. It has never changed. It's gotten worse. I don't think for a second I didn't know what I was walking into, because I did. I just knew that was what the plan was. That's why I was born. I was born to go to war and hopefully lead other people into going to war against an industry that desperately needs a pushback. I had a unique life. I've done almost every industry on the ocean, both oceans, Pacific and Atlantic. I worked as a commercial diver for almost 14 years. I have thousands and thousands and thousands of water hours on the ocean floor. And a typical day on the ocean floor for me and the people that worked with me was equal to about 2 marathons each day on the human body. I got paid very well for my work, by the way. And it wasn't unusual to make $5,000 a day. But it doesn't matter how much money you got when it takes 10 years in a hospital bed and 5 years to learn to walk again, and all that money is gone, right? And your health is gone. And then to gut up and get out there and do research for 6 years, for 5 to 6 months a year on the ocean, while I was under siege, with no one to defend me. And I am still going strong today. I'm still trying to pull off 4 or 5 shows every week. And I've blown my horn, but I'm blowing my own horn, I guess. I'm not here because it's easy. I'm here to go to war. We're at war. They're at war. They're gone to war against every species on this planet. And if you were smart out there, like you think you are, you'll be gone to war with me. Shoulder to shoulder. Because that's your calling. If you're here, you were called here by a conscience. It was built into you to do the same job. But you got to realize my whole life was the perfect thing that allowed me to be able to withstand the assault from the nuclear industry that I put up with constantly here. The isolation. It doesn't matter if nobody watches my show, I'm still doing my show. Because we got to tell that story, because the world needs to hear that story whether they want to or not. And after I'm gone, these stories will still be out there assassinating the nuclear industry. They'll never get rid of all of this material that we produce. We've produced at least 3,000 presentations. We've produced over 600 radio interviews. That's not going away. That's designed to come back and haunt the industry forever like they done to me. My name will always be shit because the world refused to defend me, but so will the nuclear industry because I couldn't even defend you. I'm here to fight for you and your friends and your families and your loved ones, your wonderful species on this beautiful planet, our only planet that is now being exterminated. And if the world wakes up, there'll be millions and millions and millions of us fighting. And we will win something. We will never get our planet back. We'll never get the gray whales back. We'll never get the humpbacks. We'll never get our seabirds back. They're permanently exterminated now. You know, the cliffs we're on too have been stained by the excrement from 1 million generations of migratory birds coming here to raise their fledglings. All year long, those cliffs are stained long after they're gone on their migratory route, and they'll come back next year, and in millions of generations. If you go out there now, the stains are gone, post-Fukushima. There's 46 million birds missing. We're on to. How about you? We're a year to. And when they leave here, there would be around 200 million birds when those fledglings were ready to fly with their parents, 2 or 3 fledglings for each nest. There could be easily 200 million birds flying out of here with black in the sky for days and days and days. And I lived that life. I distinctly remember those days. This is why I'm like I am. This is why I'm here as often as I can. Even when I'm not feeling good, I'm still here. And in the sweltering heat tonight, I wasn't going to do the show, but I had some major winds the last couple of days. And so therefore I needed to gut up, and even though I'm exhausted and I'm choked with smoke from forest fires and heat exhaustion and everything else, I'm still here tonight in desperation and hope and dreaming that the world will change and the world will come out and fight with me or stand alongside of me. Every night I come here, I have that same dream. I wake up every morning in a panic. When I wake up in the morning, it's a panic. I have to get up right away. I'm panicked. Because I can't deny what's going on. I can't deny what I see every day. I can't deny what's going on. I can't deny that. That's why I'm here. It's because I can't deny it. Because I'm haunted by it. I'm mortified and terrified by it. And I'm not going to say that I'm too tired or I'm too lazy or I don't want to or anything. That's never going to happen for me. It's just if I can't do it because I'm hurting, then that's something. That's different. But many times I still went ahead and done it. In desperation to try to make the world, just desperation. It's probably hopeless, but it's desperation. You know, when I've done the research expeditions, let me show you that. I can never escape that. I was out from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska for 6 years, 4 to 5 months a year on the ocean after Fukushima. Just building that operation was a nightmare. And to go out and see these species didn't exist anymore and that everything was naked. I was a commercial diver. I'm very familiar with all these species. Every day that I dove, I felt privileged. And I wish my loved ones, my friends, and my families could see what I saw every day. I wish that I couldn't explain that to them. I couldn't explain there was a whole universe just under the surface. And now people say, well, there never was many species there. There never was many starfish. There never was many sea urchins. There never was many. There was never any starfish. There never was many birds. There never was many clams. There never was many oysters. But there was. In 2011, that's what it looked like. Would you rather have nuclear and nothing? Or geothermal and renewable and all kinds of energy and an amazing coastline full of incredible diversity? Amazing. A privilege to go out there every day and live with these species. It was an incredible privilege. And after Fukushima, they said, cancer jumped from one species to another species. Nothing like it, never seen nothing like it before. Never heard tell of nothing, is beyond surprising. Cancer jumped from one species to another species to another species. That's why they died, Dana. Yeah, but where did the cancer come from, if that was so? And the starfish that we found, and you can't go over to my site and look at it anymore because I couldn't afford to keep it up this year. I can't fix the boat. There's many things I can't afford to do. But I'm still haven't lost the passion. I still have that hope. I still have that dream that the world will fight back, even though I know it's probably futile. I still have that dream, because if not, I'm going to have this dream every night. I don't have that dream anymore. I worked in that environment every day, day after day after day, 100 days straight. When I got hurt, I was out there 128 days on the ocean floor every day for 6 hours. And I shouldn't have been out there. I should have retired after 10,000 hours. And 27,000 islands, and there's nothing left. And so I remember when I come in one year, they arrested me that night in my home. They snuck up on me like bandits. And they took me in front of a judge the next morning. I was in the courtroom by myself in my pajamas, tired. I just come off the ocean after 4 or 5 months. I was broken up. And I'm in a jail cell all night because I said a scientist was a scumbag. And they wanted to protect their scientists. So they gave me 6 gag orders the next morning and humiliated me. And I had to go see a parole officer every week. I had to show up. I wasn't allowed to have a knife unless I was on the boat. I wasn't allowed to travel without permission from the parole officer. And so I remember, you know, that first week, it was a kangaroo court, by the way. I had to defend myself. I couldn't get a lawyer. 16 lawyers turned me down. And I had money to pay for it. And I couldn't do anything. They had all these restrictions against me. There was 1,700 medias come out and ridiculed me and called me a scumbag and everything else. After coming off the ocean for 4 to 5 months of research expeditions without coming home, exhausted, demoralized. And they gave me 6 gag orders against universities, a police department, a Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. I wasn't allowed to mention their names without getting permission from a provincial court judge first. And so anyway, the first week goes by and I got to go see my parole officer, my first time. And boy, they weren't very fucking nice. So the next week I came back, and they had a smile on their face, and he said, you don't belong here. I want you to go out and make an appointment with the judge to see the judge and remove the restrictions of you coming here every week. You don't belong here. We looked at you, what you do for this planet. You don't belong here, sir. And they shook my hand. And so I went out there, and I remember the clerk said to me, well, you know, you were convicted 2 weeks ago. You're going to have to wait a few months before you get the restrictions. I said, well, the parole officer told me I didn't belong here and was mad at me if I didn't come out here and talk to you. She jumped into gear. And then the next week I was in front of a judge, and the judge made me sit there the whole day. I sat in the courtroom the entire day, and all the people that had cases went through ahead of me. And I was the last person in the courtroom. The prosecutor was about to leave, and the judge said, hang on, I got one more case. And the prosecutor said, well, I don't see any other cases. And the judge looked at the prosecutor and said, I got one more case. He said, okay. And so they called me up. And the judge said, Mr. Durnford, you're the #1 nuclear activist on the entire planet. I said, if you say so. And she said, there must have been a lot of competition for that job. I said, well, I don't want the job. I'm just Dana. I'm just trying to do something good. The prosecutor was asked, did they have any objections to removing the restrictions against me, all the restrictions against me? And the prosecutor said, well, I don't even know who he is, so I got no objection, Your Honor. The judge looked at him again, he said, well, I got no objections, Your Honor. And the judge said to me, come back in 1 hour and see the clerk, and we'll have new paper for you, and all those restrictions will be removed. It was the only time that I seen any kindness my way from that system. It was just the only time. And so I came back an hour later, and everybody, all the clerks in the front desk of the courtroom shook my hand, came over, every one of them. Big smiles. And I walked out of that courtroom, and I went to war, never stopped. I never stopped. And I won't be stopping anytime soon, I can tell you that much. Is the nuclear industry trying to kill as many people as possible by building nuclear plants in farmlands? I think I made a pretty good case. I don't think I'm a bad person for fighting for everybody and every species on the planet. Despite what people say, I don't think I'm a bad person for being that person.
Right beside old Unit 3 sits a shell-marked waste, you see. Tanks of resin stacked with care, holding what the pumps caught there. TEPCO field 2 plans to show. One says yes, the other no. Each awaits a coming call. Neither clears the path at all. So they say, when the work might get underway. Decommission down the line, mid-century's hopeful sign. 880 tons remain, none retrieved from 3's domain. They debate what space to claim. Still the Buildington stays the